Yeah, so the reintroduction, I think it was really kind of that whole transition. And for me, I was strategic as far as the folks and who I came out to first and who I shared my true self with them. And I will say, like 99 times out of 100, I made the right call because the minute I said and opened up and said, I'm gay, and this is something that I've struggled with for years, the first few people that I came out to, they were like, it's not a big deal. And I had a feeling you were gay. So for me, it was strategic on finding those people. It's kind of perception, like, who do I think is going to support me and be my ally?
Yeah.
And
Right.
and I was very fortunate in many ways because I was led with my performance in business that who I was as a person was secondary. So most people were like, yeah, we love your products. Some of them were like, we could care less that you're gay. And yeah, that was a fortunate position for me to be in.
Right. Right. And you're talking about finding your allies, finding your champions. And it's almost like that safety in numbers game where you've come out to enough people, you feel like they have your back as clients. They're going to keep working with you. That's got to help build on your self-confidence. So thank you for sharing that. The show is about empowerment. And what I'm really interested in asking each and every one of my guests is to think about your own lived experiences of coming out and being a part of the rainbow community and reflecting on that as a business owner and identifying those superpowers that you've gained from the resiliency that you have to have as being a part of LGBT communities. Like even in today's current political and cultural times, it's challenging, right? And so with that lived experience, what do you think helps in the world of business to help you stand out because of those resiliencies that you've gained as being a part of the rainbow community?
Well, I think resilience is one thing, obviously, because when you know that you're part of a minority and the world is the way that it is, you've had to endure a lot. I can look back on my life and, I was bullied in high school, even though I was one of the popular kids in high school. So you learn how to fight back or to deal with it. What I was going to share as far as the whole empowerment and for me and really where I'm at right now, and it's obviously been years since I've come out, I don't hide from anyone. And that is so refreshing. And the thing, especially being here in San Francisco and Silicon Valley, when I sit down and I have a meeting with someone, they look at most folks and they fit into a cookie cutter mold. I very quickly actually let them know that I don't fit that mold. And with some people, I literally, because they will challenge me on what makes you different as far as your vision, how you approach technology, et cetera, I let them know straight up. The added dimension that I have is I'm a gay man and I look at things very differently and have my entire life. And I think it's true for anybody who's a minority and who's in our community, LGBTQ plus, that we aren't like everybody else. And that's actually a blessing and a gift because we're going to approach business, we're going to approach creativity, we're going to approach things so differently from everybody else. Absolutely. And yeah, so that's probably the biggest thing that I walk into a meeting knowing I've got this superpower of actually being LGBTQ.
Yeah. Absolutely. I really liked what you were saying about knowing how to fight back. And in the world of business, it's about how to deal with those ups and downs that happen every day, right? And just the challenges that pop up. And it helps you have perspective of, hey, I've been able to navigate around more challenging things in my life. And this is easy. This is just kind of thinking differently, thinking out of the box. And like what you were saying, just having that different perspective, thinking differently, which helps businesses, clients that you're working with really bust out of that group think.
Oh, so exactly.
Yeah. And contributing to innovation. So thank you for sharing some of your superpowers. I think that that's really helpful for our audience. There's definitely the challenges that you talked about and obviously the superpowers. For our listeners, what's one thing that you would want them to take away to inspire them to be more authentic in their work?
Don't be afraid of everybody. And I was in that place years ago. Open yourself up, and sometimes you have to be cautious, but be willing to take that first step. I think of a couple of friends that didn't take me coming out and being my authentic self well initially, but they came back to me because they were my friend. And it happens to be their religious upbringing. I was committing a mortal sin by being gay. Find those people who are going to add to your superpowers and your ability to be your authentic self.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what you're speaking to is just that being vulnerable, and you can't control how other people will react to it, but just being free enough to share that. If you feel safe enough, if you're secure in your job, there's a lot of things that need to be in place before you do that. But if you do have that kind of foundation, to trust that by being yourself, you're going to develop really meaningful relationships, business relationships with other folks, where they're more likely to trust you and want to get to know you more and do business with you, which is kind of the ingredients, I think, for success, right? So one other question before we jump into some mindset questions for you. And that is, I met you through the StartOut community, which is a nonprofit that helps support LGBT entrepreneurs. So clearly you're engaged with supporting the next generation of LGBT business owners. I'm curious, what are some of the other ways that you're giving back to LGBT communities through your role as a business owner in San Francisco?
Yeah, so probably the biggest thing that I've been doing was like a year and a half ago when I joined StartOut, or went to my first StartOut event, because I said I really want to look for my community. And I feel like as a professional that I can be a positive role model, and I can be a very strong supporter and ally and role model, almost kind of like a fierce mother lion in many ways. I mentor a lot of LGBTQ startup entrepreneurs who are much younger than me. And I am all about not just mentoring, but networking, as far as referrals, introducing them to folks that I know, and folks that they do not care where you come from. They just want to make sure that the performance in your work is good. So yeah, I'm a staunch supporter of helping the next generation through mentoring and networking and making introductions.
Yeah, and you definitely walk your talk, because you've done that for me a couple of times now. So I appreciate that.
You have such a great story, Rhodes, and I've enjoyed meeting you from the very beginning.
Yeah, likewise. I'm really glad that we're doing this right now. And you have a really amazing outlook on doing business. And so I think it's a good segue to talk more about the business mindset that entrepreneurs need to have, or should kind of continue to cultivate. And I think what pops up for a lot of us, no matter where you are, is the imposter complex, our unconscious limiting beliefs that tell us that we're not enough, or we're not ready, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm curious, from your perspective, especially thinking about like 1994, you're breaking away from a super successful marketing career, working for someone else, having that security. How did you overcome that initial feeling of, and maybe you didn't have this, but if you did, that you weren't ready yet, or you weren't good enough, like those creeping doubts that pop up, especially when you're just getting started? Like, how did you manage that?
Yeah, well, the first couple of years when I left, I was deep in the closet. And I'll be very transparent, 94, 95 for me were a couple of really dark years for myself. And your comment about the imposter complex, I'd lived a lot of my life in business and life in general as an imposter. And the voices in my head, as far as talking to myself, and we all have them, they were just getting louder and louder, that you gotta eventually be who you are.
Yeah. So I think you're talking specifically about feeling imposter around just being out around your sexual orientation, right? And linking that to starting out as a business owner, obviously that's got to be taking up so much emotional energy and cognitive energy. So like on the other piece, the other side of it is that you're moving away from being an employee, working on accounts for McDonald's or DeVry University or whatnot. And now you're stepping out and you're saying, hey, wait, I'm going to be my own boss. I'm going to start my own business, my own marketing firm. When you made that change, when you were reintroducing yourself to other people, was there a voice in your head also kind of saying, you're not quite ready to do this, or maybe you should have given yourself another year or two? Like when those kind of creeping doubts come in, how did you navigate that? Like what were some of those things that popped up specifically around being a business owner? And I can imagine just trying to come out at the same time was challenging, right? There was a lot going on.
Tough. There was definitely a lot going on. Yeah, what I ended up doing is, because when you start out with your own business, is it can be a very lonely place.